What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk with Hawk. I am Hawk, and today we're going to have some fun. I don't know what your plans are for Super Bowl weekend. I don't know what your plans are for the big game at all, who you've got coming over, who your friends are rooting for, who you're rooting for. Obviously, I will do my Super Bowl pick here at the end of this week as we do the breakdown of the game on each side of the ball, on each sideline, from the head coach all the way down. But I got something fun for you to do during this great gathering. Now, this is designed to be fun. I said last week, this is going to cater to your tastes. This one will be a very little right and wrong type answer situation here. We're going to play the Mount Rushmore game. The Mount Rushmore game of sports. So, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do you play? Here are the simple rules. A general Mount Rushmore is not going to differ too much. But what if you change the eras it has to come from? What if you change the era it has to come from? So, if we go in increments of 5, maybe 10. An era is basically every 10 years. You say the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. The problem you run into, and I can hear you guys already trying to drum up the potential issues that can be, but you've got a bunch of players that cross decades. You got that right. So when were they best? That's it. When were they best? It's easy to go 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, thousands, 2010s, 2020s, which is what we're in right now. That's not the way that's not the best way to do it. I guess that's a better way of putting it. That's not the best way to do it. If you did it that way, or if you do it that way, that's just fine. I'm going to go from fives. So from 65 to 75, 75 to 85, 85 to 95, 95 to 2005, 2005 to 2015, and 2015 to today to match where we're at. That's going to be my eras, 10-year increments. Here's another rule. So you got to have eras. Why? you can only pick one player from each era. And then on top of that, rule number 2, you can only pick one player from a position. One player from a position. So you can't have 2 quarterbacks, can't have 2 receivers, can't have 2 running backs, can't have 2 defensive ends. You have to have one player from the position. It restricts being able to blanket cover this Mount Rushmore. So let me give you a hypothetical. You can do this for every sport. Every single sport, you can do this. In basketball, this is what I came up with. My Mount Rushmore, based off of the decade eras that I just laid out. My top 4 are Wilt Chamberlain, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Steph Curry. Those are my Mount Rushmores. Remember, can't ever be the same position. Wilt Chamberlain center. Larry Bird was technically a small forward, but he was a forward. Jordan was the 2 guard, and Steph Curry is the point. Now, what if you wanted a Mount Rushmore of just forwards? Just forwards. Gets a little bit more interesting. Here'd be my Mount Rushmore of forwards for the NBA. Number 1, still Larry Bird. The second era, okay, so the era that you're looking at now is 95 to 2005. That era for me would absolutely be Tim Duncan. Would absolutely be Tim Duncan. From 95 to 2005 would be Tim Duncan. '85 to 95 would be Larry Bird. From 2005 to 2015, LeBron James. And from 2015 to current, now that one would be interesting. I'd either be going from 75 to 85 with a little bit earlier, or I go a little bit earlier than that. Or I go current, because I've already got 30 years covered between my 3 picks right now. And yes, this is forwards. Not saying 4s, not saying 3s. This is just forwards. Currently, the from '05 from 2015 to current, honestly, one of the most dominating forwards is Kawhi Leonard. Now, I don't like him. I think he's way too injured. I think he was better earlier on in his career when he helped San Antonio, Toronto, basically everything before Los Angeles. But he's good. And he is an absolute difference maker on that floor. Giannis is a forward as well. I think he's coming into his own. I don't think he's nearly as. I think he's gotten a lot of. His length is a lot of it. And yes, I know length is part of who you are. You can't fault the guy for it. You're right. That statement is accurate. But as far as dominating, Kawhi Leonard early on, before he went to the Clippers, defense, offense, absolute animal. Putting him next to LeBron James, next to Tim Duncan, next to Larry Bird, I could start all of them and win. Excuse me. So that's how the game goes. Don't try to split eras or try to keep players in an era they aren't in. If they're not great in that area, you don't want them there. Which Tom Brady do you want to take? 2005 to 2015 or 2016 to current? Like that's the question that's being posed here. Yeah, Tom Brady spans a lot of years. But which version of him do you want on that Mount Rushmore? Which one's the best? Excuse me, doggone it. Dang bleh, bleh. Those aren't hiccups. Those are sneezes. Anyway, so in football, you can do this for every position. And I do love it when there's lists that come out and different things that come out, and they're like, these were the best tight ends in this era and this era. Well, it's important. It's very important. Kansas City has had two of the greatest tight ends of all time play for them. Tony Gonzalez and Travis Kelce. San Francisco hasn't been too bad with Vernon Davis and George Kittle. You've got the Baltimore Ravens, who seemingly have just decided that tight ends matter to them a lot. And they've gone from Shannon Sharp, Ben Coates, to Todd Heap, to now Mark Andrews. There are a lot of different teams that have done well with corners. Patriots. Asante Samuel came after Ty Law. And you look at these different teams, you can go team by team, you can go position by position, or you can do a general, give me your best four in Mount Rushmore. So here's what I'm going to do. This is going to be my Mount Rushmore, same eras. I'm going to do general NFL. General NFL. So I think for me, the easiest one is Lawrence Taylor. I think that's the easiest. It's somewhat easy. It's somewhat easy. I will take Lawrence Taylor. And then, and I can hear you guys saying already, which era? So let's analyze this. Which one would you take him out? Which one would you take him at? So his entire playing career, he was drafted, okay, as the second pick in the first round. For those of you who don't remember this, he was drafted in 1981. He dominated quickly, really quickly. But for me, his most dominance is going to be 85 to 95. Now, there were a lot of players that could be in there. Jerry Rice absolutely could be there, the best receiver to ever play the game. Barry Sanders could be there. But when you're talking about a guy that dominated the game during that time at a defensive end position, it's going to be Lawrence Taylor. If I didn't want to use my defensive end in that era, I'd go Jerry Rice, hands down. If I'm going to switch the eras, I'm going to go Jerry Rice from 85 to 95, Reggie White from 95 to 2005, his most dominant years with the Packers, where he was the absolute minister of defense. And remember, he is the one that ushered and changed the free agency game, because he was one of the first big free agent signings that really got this thing going, because he signed with Green Bay. You're in Philly and you signed with Green Bay. That's what it was. Now, the other aspect of this is you have then that opens up. So like Rice can then go 85 to 95 when he was his most dominant. Reggie White goes 95 to 2005 where he was most dominant. I would then choose Peyton Manning 2005 to 2015, his most dominant seasons. It does take out the year that he threw 49 touchdowns for the Colts, because that was 2004. But No big deal. I got plenty of seasons left. Now, here's the question. What do I do before that? Do I go before? Do I go 75 to 85? Or do I go after 2015 to current? My quarterback's gone. My wide receiver's gone. My defensive end is gone. So, running back, tight end, what are we looking at here? Interesting question, isn't it? The domination of the game at a position, who's on your Mount Rushmore? Is there a running back in the last 9 years that you want to put up there, that deserves to be up there? Is there a defensive tackle, linebacker, who's on there? Tight end? For me, it's really simple. I'm going to stick with the defensive side of the ball. From 2015 to current, I have never seen a defensive lineman master the game and control it nearly as much as I have seen Aaron Donald do. When you actually watch games and understand what he's done, both with how he attacks, the number of sacks, number of pressures, number of batted down balls. When you actually look at all that stuff together and then watch the tape and notice he's double and triple teamed, the Lions triple teamed him. Triple teamed one guy. They said 3 guys block him. Three guys go block him. When that is the case, you have to be on the Mount Rushmore. And if you give me Aaron Donald from 2015 to today and Reggie White from 95 to 2005, I'm winning a lot of games because you're not scoring any points. So joke's on your offense for trying to score, basically. Because I ain't letting you score. That is my approach to this right now. You ain't scoring. That's it. You ain't scoring. That is my only approach to this whole thing. So there's my Mount Rushmore of football between the eras. Jerry Rice, Reggie White, Peyton Manning, Aaron Donald. Little bit different, huh? Do a Mount Rushmore of running backs, because running backs is one of those things that's really tapered off within the last 9 years. Running backs aren't making a bunch of money. All these rookies that are 5 years ago, most of them aren't getting a second contract, third contract. Third contract's very unheard of now. Second contract. Who would be your running back Mount Rushmore? This is a completely different question. The hard part is one of the best running backs of all time played 9 years, and in our current setup we have splits 2 decades or splits 2 eras because he played 5 years and 4 years between 90 and 99, and that's Barry Sanders. Now, one of my favorite running backs, 2005 to 2015, I honestly believe, if I had to be honest, Adrian Peterson probably is the most recent running back that I have seen dominate the running back position. That was fun to watch. Absolutely a blast to watch. He came out in 2007. So I have roughly 8 solid years of Adrian Peterson. Between 2005 and 2015, and let's be honest, those were the dominant years. He ran over everybody. Everybody. Prior to 2005, you got a couple different running backs you could take. Prior to 2005, I'd probably have to go Emmitt Smith, maybe Marshall Faulk. I'm a Colts fan, you guys know this. He did win the Super Bowl with the Rams, and then he did play in a second one with the Rams. Marshall Faulk, to me, was just a special. He was a very special running back. What he did with the Indianapolis Colts when they absolutely sucked was fantastic. Second to none. Turn around, hand the ball to 28, and let him run. That was the game plan. There was no other game plan. That game plan is the only game plan they could have had. Turn around, hand it to 28, rock and roll, go. Make sure you block and make sure you keep everything going really well. Like, that is all that they had. It's the only option they had. So because of that, he is sitting right there at the edge because of how impactful he was. Colts don't win games without number 28. That's simple. He was special during that stretch. But Emmitt Smith, arguably one of the top 3 running backs of all time if you don't count eras, and if you're just going straight up, yeah. Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Adrian Peterson would be my top 3 running backs of all time. Sweetness was fun to watch, I'm guessing. looking at the highlights, Earl Campbell. But I can only go off of who I've watched. I can only go off of what I've actually seen. Adrian Peterson absolutely would be in there. Emmitt Smith would be there. Then I would put Walter Payton. And then the one who really made the position start being what it is now, Jim Brown. Jim Brown. I have a lot of respect for what Jim Brown did. I really do. I have a lot of respect for what he did. And he really did pave the way. Really did pave the way. And deserves every bit of credit that he gets. So my era, Mount Rushmore of running backs, Jim Brown, Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith, Adrian Peterson. It's a little bit different of a game. Play with eras, play it straight up, play basketball, football, play soccer, play NASCAR, just for the fun of it. Play NASCAR. Yeah, everybody's going to cheat and say Richard Petty is going to be one. All right. Fair enough. Who's two? Who's the next one? What's the next era? From 95 to 2005, not going to lie. From 95 to 2005, between Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon, I'm taking Jeff Gordon. Prior to 95, I'm taking Dale Earnhardt. Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. My NASCAR Mount Rushmore. You can agree or disagree. You can have a lot of fun. Remember, this is not a right or wrong thing. There is no right or wrong with this. It's all off of preference. Can you laugh if somebody goes, my favorite quarterback or my quarterback on my Mount Rushmore is Jake Delhomme? Yeah, you can laugh. No. Kerry Collins? No. No. My Mount Rushmore has Keyshawn Johnson. Really? Really? The guy's career tapered off faster than any other career. Honestly, I don't know what happened. Wins a Super Bowl with the Bucs, but what happened after that? You can laugh, but this is all off of preference. That's all this is. And it'll be interesting to see how you and your friends switch everything up. Because you'll learn something. You'll learn something about your friends' tastes and what they look for when they're watching sports. Pay attention to how they pick. what they lean towards. Do they lean towards guys with records? Do they lean towards guys that are just really good guys? Tony Gonzalez could absolutely be on the Mount Rushmore of the NFL. He absolutely could. And if I did a tight end one, and nobody's replacing him. Nobody. He deserves every bit of credit for what he did on 2 different teams in the NFL. So it is interesting. Pay attention. Pay attention to your friends. Pay attention to what they say. And you can learn a little bit about them, their personality. Like, Hawk, this is just sports. No, it's more than sports. We communicate through sports. Men communicate through sports. Preferences, likes, dislikes. We all communicate that through who we like, why we like them, and the way that we like them. You'll learn something about your friends. You'll have a fun time while you're doing it. And you can get everybody involved, including the people that say, I don't care. And you just tell them, just give us 4. Just give us your 4. You'll learn something. They spit out 4 names that they just remember. Whether it's 70s, 80s, 90s, current, you'll learn something. And have a lot of fun while doing it. I got a lot of stuff that I'm trying to gear up to get ready for this kind of off-season push. To close out this episode here, I know Dan Quinn is getting a little bit of backlash for firing Eric Bieniemy. They hired Cliff Kingsbury. Eric Bieniemy deserves a head coaching opportunity. I think he is Andy Reid 2.0. He is either Andy Reid 2.0 or he is Tom Moore 2.0. Tom Moore, by the way, is coming back again for another season. 85 years old, if I remember correctly. 85 years old, coming back for another season as an offensive assistant for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I wanted the Colts to hire him. I think we would have been better if we'd had him and not Shane Steichen last year. I think we would have been better if we had him and never had Frank Reich. I think Eric Bieniemy would still be the football coach. Dan Quinn brought in a coach, the offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury. They brought in an offensive coordinator that's worked with Caleb Williams, which really makes this interesting. Really makes this interesting. Are the Bears questioning whether or not Caleb Williams is number 1 or not? There's a lot of things coming out of the Senior Bowl like Penix and Nix aren't locks for round number 1. If they're not locks for round number 1, where are these guys getting quarterbacks from? Like, that's just going to be horrible quarterback play then if they don't The Falcons need a quarterback. The Giants need a quarterback. The Raiders need a quarterback. The Patriots, the Commanders, the Bears need a quarterback. I know people are like, but we got Justin Fields. No. You trade him, get the draft capital for him, and you got the first pick in the draft. You draft a quarterback. If for nothing else, you reset the clock where you got 5 more years of friendly cap space. The Broncos could need a quarterback. They get rid of Russell Wilson. There's not a bunch of options. The Vikings may need a quarterback. The Seahawks still need a quarterback. Ownership doesn't want to run with Geno Smith. Hello? So for every single draft analyst and expert that is like, they may not make it in the first round, have you not looked at the NFL landscape? You're telling me that quarterback is no longer the most important position? You think the Raiders can win with Aiden O'Connell consistently? The Vikings, to me, feel like a plug-and-play type offense with Kevin O'Connell. They could draft anybody they need. They could absolutely pick any of the quarterbacks. Jordan Travis, think he works good. Penix, think he works great. I still think Bo Nix to Atlanta makes a lot of sense. Mature, accurate, knows how to run and knows how to play those routes, has an arm. I don't like Jaden Daniels. I never have. I never will. You guys have heard this. I don't like Jaden Daniels. I'm probably going to be completely wrong on him because he's probably going to end up being the CJ Stroud of this year's draft. I don't like what I see with his accuracy. It seems off. He struggles a little bit more in the bigger games. I don't like him in cold weather. That's why I don't like him in New England. There's so many different aspects to this. But on the coaching aspects, it's a big deal here. It's definitely a very big deal. So, see how it all plays out. The coaching carousel for head coaches is done. The offensive coordinators are one by one filling their places in. Defensive coordinators as well. We have one more game to go before we clear out all potential coaching changes. If Andy Reid retires, it's going to be interesting who they would potentially get there. Dallas Cowboys still need a defensive coordinator. Still need a defensive coordinator. I don't know who Mike McCarthy's going to go get. I don't know what they're going to do. Really not sure. I'm waiting for what Cowboy players are going to do. I'm waiting for if the Cowboy players are going to ask to be traded. Dan Quinn was loved. Dan Quinn was really liked. This new guy comes in, changes the style of defense. Who's out? Who doesn't want to play there anymore? It's a legitimate question. So it's going to be fun to see how all of this kind of plays in with each other and kind of plays in together. A little bit different episode, guys. I got some fun stuff coming up. We're going to go over the different salary cap, the salary cap options, and the salary cap details of teams that can shed a big amount of their salary cap, but how many players they can do it in. Found a website that does have that, so I'm excited for that. Going to walk through the cap space and how does each team that's over the cap get back under the cap. Like I said, the Chargers, I can see the way of doing it. It's relatively easy, but you lose players. You can cut them, restructure them, whatever you need to do. So that's what we're going to go over here in the next couple episodes. It'll be the salary cap series, and we're going to go over all that information for you guys as well. And guys, put it in the comments. Put it in the comments on YouTube. What else do you want somebody to go over? What do you want me to go over in a podcast that you want to know when it comes to the NFL, the NBA? Haven't gotten into baseball yet. Still a little ways out. We'll get into that here in a little bit. We're going to go over some trade deadline stuff for the NBA because that is creeping in on everybody here shortly. Very quickly, actually. Only got, I believe, 2 more days left, and then we have the All-Star break also coming up here in Indianapolis. So I got a lot of things that are going to be planned for the rest of this week. But for this episode of Mount Rushmore, that is it. Appreciate you guys stopping by. If you're on Spotify, thank you for being here. If you're on YouTube, as always, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, ring the bell, and it is greatly appreciated. Leave a comment. Leave a comment and tell me what information you want somebody to go over or different things like that. Love suggestions. It's how I get some of these ideas is from talking to my friends and some different conversations we have. So let me know. But guys, until tomorrow, this is Sports Talk with Hawk. I'm Hawk, and I'm out.